finally reach Goa on May 6th, 1542, after a voyage of 13 months. That's twice as long as it usually takes. Only 2 of the 5 galleons that set sail for Lisbon actually reach Goa, India. The other 3 were lost at sea during a series of storms. Now, Goa is a little European city. Churches are being constructed. Schools are on the way. The Portuguese have displaced the natives. Now, these natives practice a mixture of Hindu and Islam. Essentially, they have displaced the natives in order to allow their trade network to blossom. Xavier quickly takes up residence at the hospital and awaits the arrival of his fellow Jesuits who are following in another vessel. Goa is a rough and tumble, if not scandalous, merchant sailor town. The Christian community is in desperate need of spiritual renewal. Goa is in fact a challenge to Xavier. The town's Christians do not behave in a very pious manner. Xavier forms young people into a brigade of virtue. He instructs them on the principles of the Catholic religion. He spends the mornings assisting and comforting the sick and distressed in the hospitals and prisons. He washes their wounds. He washes their feet. He walks through the streets ringing a bell to summon the children and the slaves to catechism. He offers mass with the lepers on Sunday and preaches in public. And he visits the houses of the Indians. The sweetness of his character and his charitable nature is irresistible to many of them. Xavier lives the ideals of Christianity. He practices what he preaches. He's a living example. Xavier versifies the religion to fit popular local tunes as a plan of conversion. He doesn't yet know the language, but he knows how to communicate. He knows that the native population loves music. Essentially, he creates a series of jingles that are combined with pictures of the Virgin. This plan works so successfully that the practice spreads till the songs are being sung everywhere, in the streets, in the houses, in the workshops, in the fields. Xavier puts an entire religious instruction into a raga, or a song, that people can easily remember and repeat. He manages to translate Christianity into a popular Indian art form, and basically goes from village to village. He baptizes tens of thousands of people at the same time. Entire groups, entire communities, multitudes of people. Xavier hears tales of the pearl fishery coast opposite Ceylon. People called the Paravas, who have been mistreated by the authorities. Some have been baptized, but they lack instruction and still have retained many of their native beliefs and vices. So Xavier goes to help these people out. He learns the native language and instructs and confirms those who have already been baptized, and concentrates on the rudiments of the Catholic religion. Most of the Paravas people are unfamiliar with the name of Christ. He administers the Holy Sacrament to these folks. He does it so many times in a row that he can scarcely move his arms. He essentially becomes exhausted. Now, the Paravas are from the low untouchables caste. They're the poorest of the poor. But Xavier loves them. Francis has a much different reception, however, from the Brahmins, the higher caste of India. let me tell you why. Because essentially, he only manages to convert one noble, one Brahmin in a year. At this time, a number of healing miracles are attributed to Francis Xavier. Xavier goes before the people as one of themselves. He eats the poorest food, rice and water, fish heads, that kind of thing. He sleeps on the ground in a hut. He extends his activities from village to village, and these villages receive him with joy. They consider him a holy man. Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, all consider him a holy man, and they all love him. The Portuguese are, in fact, the greatest obstacle to his mission because they are a discredit to Christianity. There's a lot of vice, there's a lot of greed, there's a lot of corruption. The local commandant has secret dealings with the slave trade, and he gets a cut of the profits. Francis becomes very disillusioned with them, the Portuguese, because they threaten the continuance of the church in India. They are more interested in trade and luxury than spirituality. Xavier wants to clean up the colony, but does not want to get involved or mixed up in secular politics. He feels that he must continue to focus on his evangelical work. The Portuguese are not the only problem. As I mentioned, an entire segment of the Indian population is cold to Xavier's message and is actually repulsed by his person. Xavier cannot seem to reach the upper crust, and this is due to his physical touching of the poor, his concern for the poor, his mixing with the outcasts, the untouchables of the population, essentially cuts Xavier off from the upper levels of Indian society. Francis does not understand or refuses to deal with the reality of the Hindu caste system. Now, spring 1845, Francis sets out for Malacca in the Malay Peninsula. He makes this journey on foot. Along the way, he visits the shrine of St. Thomas at Malapur. Remember, Christianity's been in India for quite some time. And he stays at a number of small Portuguese settlements. During his travels, Francis converts many European sinners, sailors, and mercenaries by his gentle and courteous ways. His efforts at reform meet with some success, and he is always received with great reverence and cordiality. There's many more healing miracles ascribed to him during these travels. Over the next 18 months, well, this is a time of great missionary activity for Francis, but Xavier's movements are sometimes difficult to follow. He visits Amboina, Chanale, and Gitalo. He preaches and ministers to Portuguese, Spanish, Italians, merchants, sailors, settlements. But Xavier also visits many islands that are not easy to identify at this point in time. Essentially, Francis is still searching for Prester John, the fabled Christian king of the East. And he goes back to Malacca. Malacca is a booming city. It's the crossroads for sailors, for traders, from Europe, from the Muslim world, from the Far East. It's the place where they all meet. Xavier, before he leaves Malacca, hears about Japan for the first time, a sophisticated kingdom and nation of wise lords. He hears about Japan from two Portuguese sailors and a fugitive Japanese named Anjiro. Now, Anjiro tells Xavier many stories of his homeland.